Welcome to Demystify Magic with Molly and Madison.
I'm Molly, a former skeptic turned full-time energy healer and teacher.
And I'm Madison, a born and raised witch running my family's crystal shop.
And we're here to explore all things woo through the lens of both science and spirituality so that you can find the moments of magic in your everyday life and create an intentional spiritual practice.
So if that's what you're into, find a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's demystify some magic. Howdy doody, friends.
Howdy doody, friends.
Duty howdy.
I wish that I could go back in time and show exactly how we got here. We have such a treat for you today. Such a treat that I am in a different location. We've just spent 30 minutes making things more complicated than they needed to be. All for the love and care of this human being we have here with us today. We have the man, the myth, the legend, one of my dear, dear friends and incredible teachers, Anthony, is here to talk about all things mediumship with us.
Woo-hoo. I almost wore my Ghostbusters shirt today, and then I was like, but we don't want to say we don't want ghosts in here. We want ghosts in here.
I need a ghost magnet t-shirt.
Yes, not a
Ghost
Ghostbusters.
No.
We're ghost lovers.
Unless it's like a Dave and Buster's. Imagine a Dave and Buster's, but it's
Oh my
for
God,
ghosts.
Deal, sign me up.
Isn't that just a Dave and Buster's at nighttime?
I've never been to a Dave and Buster's. We don't have those in Maine.
Really? We should go.
I know what we're doing next month.
All right. So
I'm so excited for this episode. Anthony, I feel like our listeners know you without knowing you, just like I felt like I knew you before I knew you. And they have been asking, there's a very cute dog on Madison's shoulder. What is that?
Oh, is that Ruby?
Oh, it's another dog that crawled in here. So, a peek behind the curtain. I'm in Anthony's living room right now, while Anthony is in his bedroom, and his little tiny dog Ruby, who is the love of my life, has decided to stay out here with me, which I will take as the highest of compliments. And she just tried to start speaking into the microphone, and also lick the inside of my mouth at the same time.
Very multifaceted she is.
Mm-hmm. A true queen.
This feels like a good time to remind people that if you want to meet Anthony in person, as well as us, we're all going to be at the anniversary of Demystify Magic at Spellcrafter next month. So we'll slide the deets in the description. You can come hang out for the meet and greet or grab a ticket for the live reading and meditation. We would love to see you there.
Yes, Anthony is also the manager at Spellcrafter, so he is there all the time if you ever want to come fangirl geek out or get a reading.
Yes, the reading room is done. It's ready to be used, and I'm excited.
We're making it happen, and we're going to talk about all the things that happen inside that reading room. But first, Anthony knows because he is a listener of the podcast. We start our episodes with something called a magic moment, where it's just a little small moment within the last week or so, where you really saw your spiritual practice come through for you. Either it supported you in a difficult time or like a small moment of manifestation, some little treat magic. So what was your magic moment this week, Anthony?
Oh my gosh, I feel like because of being in the shop now and going into a place where there's just so much magic on the daily, I feel like it's hard to narrow down one magic moment. But I'm going to. I have my magic moment actually. And it happened yesterday. When, I was working, I worked all day long. It was great. I love being in the shop. And this customer comes in and, I think the reason what makes this so magical is, Madison, I know you and I have shared this a lot with each other about how we're just so excited to serve, the spiritual community and serve it in a way that is so authentic to each of us and just to be present for that. And so yesterday, this girl came in and she was really sweet. She had just moved to St. Pete, and sometimes when you read for people and you see them in person, if someone comes in, it's like it takes 2 seconds for you to realize that their energy is off, something's wrong. And so, I just kind of talked to her a little bit. I kind of helped her and just helped her find things and helped her to understand certain reasons why she might be drawn to something, and then she just out of nowhere just started unloading and she started crying. And the magic moment wasn't her crying. The magic moment was her coming into this space that, we intentionally have created for people to come in and just be their most authentic self. And the fact that she felt so comfortable to where she could just unload some of her emotions and just express them with me, someone who she's never met before in her entire life, it was very magical to me, because it means that we had created such a safe space. And that to me is like, above anything else, the most important thing about being a part of the Spellcrafter, family. And so that was a huge magical moment for me yesterday. And then she wanted to tip me. Like, if making people cry makes them want to give me money, okay.
I think there's a niche market on the internet for that. And we didn't even pay him to make his magic moment about Spellcrafter. Wow.
No. But I will send a bill.
All right. So this is one of my favorite stories. I love to hear you talk about this. And so I want to just start off with a bang. How did you realize that mediumship was something that you could do? How did you realize that you were a medium? This is something that you've been doing and experiencing for like most of your life, right? We've talked about this a little bit, but how did you kind of realize that that was a skill that you had, and how did you develop it to be something that you like do now for work?
Oh, that is like, it's really weird. It's like, for me, I'm going to bring this to the LGBTQIA. It's like being...
I'm so sorry, Anthony. Your door just opened.
Madison.
Ghostbusters.
Like, the door to the balcony just opened.
And Ruby's freaking out, isn't she? I can hear her.
And Ruby is barking at it. It spooked me. Here, I'm going to shut it. But there is a ghost in
Oh
this.
my God, this
Ghostbusters.
house. They just follow me. No, they're following you, Madison. Okay, guys, everybody, I have to tell you all a secret about Spellcrafter. For some reason, we have this cute little ghosty boy. We named him Caleb. And Madison, I'm sorry to just throw you under the bus like this, but every single time Madison goes into the bathroom, Caleb opens the door. Like, she physically shuts the door all the way, and then the door just opens.
That is true.
Caleb came to the house.
Caleb is with you right now.
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised. I have literally, like, locked the door, watched myself lock it, and then watched it still locked, lock still in place, open. It is like unfathomable to me. That was my first thought as I watched the door open. But now Ruby's guarding it, so don't worry, everybody. The door is still safe.
The hellhound. Amazing.
The 8-pound hellhound. All right, sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt you, but I couldn't just not say anything.
I'm so glad you did. Thank you for that. The whole opening up to not working with spirit, but like interacting with spirit started at such a young age that I kind of feel it's a very linear feeling of like coming out of the closet. Like, it was like I was always gay, but I didn't realize I was gay until 22 years old in my life. Does that make sense? And so I think maybe there was a lot of denial, but I saw my first spirit person when I was 12 years old. I feel like it's kind of stereotypical for a medium to be like, yes, my grandmother came to me, but literally my grandmother came to me in my bedroom. And I tell everybody, when I was I'm a Cancer, and when I was a little boy, every single night we would always pray before bed. And so when my grandmothers passed away, both of them died within a year of each other. I would pray every night to say hello to my grandmother, say hello to my grandma. And one night I was praying, and then I felt this sudden change, like in the atmosphere, I guess. And at the end of my bed, I just saw this energy form that looked like a person. And, you'd think that a 12-year-old would be terrified, but there was something very settling about it. It was, and I don't know if I was seeing it in my mind's eye, if I was seeing it physically. It felt very physical. But I knew it was my grandmother. And, from then on, I would just always randomly see spirit images or spirit people walking around and doing things. And, sometimes it would be very vivid, and sometimes it would be not so vivid. It would just be kind of like a fuzzy outline of somebody. And that it went away during high school when I was worried about being popular. It came back when I was really depressed and all these things. I didn't start really embracing it and working with it in the form of mediumship until I started reading for people, in person or via Zoom and stuff, until I started really reading for people as a form of business. And I didn't start doing mediumship. I actually was working on more psychic development and psychic work and painting the aura renderings and everything like that. But every single time I would read for somebody, someone would pop through that was in spirit. And I would be able to, you know, most of the time it'd be very specific energy, very specific things coming through to them. And it wasn't until I read for a specific somebody that you know, Madison, that I really decided to embrace the term medium. And ever since then, it's been quite the roller coaster.
Can I ask you to tell a little bit of that story? Because this is such a weird thing that connects the two of us that I love to tell people. So Anthony started reading at our original store, The Healing Hedge Witch, in November of 2022. And like we've, you know, been tangentially around each other ever since. And so I've known you for a little while, but have gotten a lot closer to you through the opening of Spellcrafter. And then this is something that happened outside of your readings at the store, but also connects us in a really weird way.
It does. So this reading that I'm about to talk about happened before I started reading at Spellcrafter, actually. Not too long before, but because...
Before you started reading at Hedge Witch?
Or yeah, Hedge Witch. I'm so sorry.
Okay, I was just making sure. No, you're fine.
What is Hedge Witch now? No. Before I started reading at Hedge Witch, this reading had happened because I was not calling myself a medium publicly to people for ego reasons. I was terrified that somebody was going to come and want just like to connect with people that I wasn't going to be able to connect them to, that, you know, somebody was going to ask me the scariest question of all. I want to know if there's somebody around me, and then me not be able to tell them yes or something like that, you know? And so I didn't want to tell people I was a medium. I didn't want to tell people about like, I would literally sit in a reading and be like, I'm not a medium, but there's this guy walking next to me right now who's saying this, this, and this. And then all of the validation that I would receive doing that, but I'd be like, but I'm not a medium. Okay. And so I was in a reading with this lady. Is it okay to say names? Are you cool with that?
You could say her first name.
Her name is Chris. And she's amazing, an amazing human. And I knew her before reading for her, like just through my previous job. And she asked me, we got almost done with the reading. She asked me that dreaded question. I just want to know if there's someone specific around me and my family. And I'm not kidding you guys. I thought I was going to throw up. I was so nervous. I was so scared. And I was like, why is this happening? Like, what in the world? I specifically did not want this exact thing to happen. And so I just told her, okay, well, let's just see what I can pick up for you. And so I opened myself up. I just extended that energy out, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. And I felt a man show up. And I felt a little bit of his personality. I felt that his death was pretty sudden. I felt that there was a big sense of regret and a lot of sorrow and a lot of sorry. Like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And there was a lot of thanks there. Of picking up and these just little aspects of things that came through. And she was able to validate everything I said. She was able to tell me that she knew exactly who it was, and that's exactly who she was wondering about, all these things. And it turned out to be Chris's husband who had passed. I don't want to go into too much detail because it is, you know, it's specific, and I don't think that's necessary. But when I got off of that reading, I literally sat there and took a deep breath, and I knew. I was like, okay, Spirit, I get what you're picking up. I'm picking up what you're putting down here. I need to start doing mediumship for people. I need to start putting myself out there as a medium. It's time to go. And so, yeah, I literally got off that reading and went straight to Vistaprint and put psychic medium on some business cards and had them shipped to the house. And so to give you guys an idea, to tell you guys what we're talking about while Madison and I know each other. So Madison's BF is Chris's son. And so when
Yes.
I'll let you tell your side of this story because I think it's better from you.
Yeah, it is. So it's so funny to hear it from your perspective, because from my perspective, obviously I had known you. I met my boyfriend Drew, and he was telling me about how his mom had been seeing this medium. And Drew is a very spiritual person, like big believer. It was never a fear that she was being taken advantage of because this wasn't real. But you knew Chris through your previous job. And so Drew would say to me, like, you know, my mom's been seeing this medium for like a while, and they like know her personally. And so I don't really know, like, it makes me feel kind of nervous sometimes of like, does this person just know a lot about her? Whatever. And I go, oh, you've got to introduce her to Anthony. I know, like, he reads at the store. I trust him with my life. He's like the best person ever. He would never, ever, ever do anything to take advantage of somebody. He's an incredibly talented psychic medium. And so Drew brings this information to his mom, to Chris. And he gives her your information, and she gets to be like, yeah, I know Anthony's the best. Anthony is the person I've been seeing. And it was just such a fun full circle moment that I just love to tell people, because it is so wild to me that she is like part of your origin story.
My favorite part was being the third party in this conversation, because I remember you voice memoing me and being like, Drew's mom has been seeing this psychic medium and he's not sure about the medium, so I think I'm going to connect her with Anthony. And then a voice note like a few days later.
Me being nervous about connecting you to my boyfriend's mom, because like, oh God, then she like maybe is going to have a reading in the store. And this was like early in our relationship. I had like maybe met her a couple times, and come to find out like you guys have this long-standing relationship. So now like truly Drew will call me and I'm at work and he'll be like with his mom, and Anthony will have me put her on speaker so he can talk to Chris. It's just a fun little, we're all so interconnected in such a fun way. It makes me so happy.
It's very synchronistic, and nothing says that spirit is like got you right where you need to be than synchronicities like that. And I think that's pretty magical.
Mm-hmm.
Magic moment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Magic moment. I think you even told part of that story on the pod once.
I think I did. I think like as it was happening,
someone
I
will
told
let us
it,
know.
Surely.
That's so awesome.
So kind of on that note, we went to Instagram to see what our listeners might want to know from you. And it was like a very overwhelming response in a couple different categories. And so you've touched on this a little bit, but how do you build that confidence in your psychic abilities? Like outside of having a holy shit, wow, gotcha moment of, you know, like a reading with Chris where you go put psychic medium on your business cards. What are some small things that you did to kind of get you to that point where you would even say that you saw somebody or being confident in giving psychic readings?
So practice, it's like funny. There's like two forms of practice that I think about. There's personal practice, like by yourself, like solo meditation, journaling, doing like psychic or mediumship like practices, like games, right? We talked about this like yesterday, I think, talking about like psychic development games. I do a lot of meditation, and I do a lot of work with spirit guides personally. And so that kind of helped me to understand what it felt like to feel spirit. Also working with even crystals and herbs and stuff, you know, you are working with the spirit of those objects, of those things. There's a livelihood around them. Or not, I don't know if livelihood is the correct like verbiage there, and so I got really used to working with spirit in that terms to get to the point where you are feeling like good to actually do it. You honestly just have to do it. Like you just have to be brave enough to start doing it with people. You can do free readings. For me, a lot of my friends that are mediums or psychics who practice or do psychic readings, they practice on like friends and family. For me, I had to practice on people I didn't know. And yeah, because to me, it's like Andrew said, he knows Chris. And the cool thing is like, I only saw her. I used to be an Orange Theory coach. So I would see her for maybe like an hour. Like when I would see her like a couple times a week. So I didn't really know her that well. I only knew her because I would scream at her on a treadmill. But other than that, like you just have to practice. And I think the number one thing is when you are practicing, you have to be completely okay with somebody saying, nope, that's wrong. Which is a very hard thing. It is so hard. And I always tell people I'm a Leo moon, so I need validation so badly. Yeah, otherwise I'll feel pointless in this world. And so you just have to you have to get yourself out there, and you have to get used to hearing, no, that's wrong. Because nothing will train you to hone in on your psychic abilities or your mediumship connection to spirit, than hearing no, because then you can realize, okay, this must be this must be about ego, or this must be the wrong way that I'm hearing this, if that makes sense. Hearing, sensing.
I want to know these psychic ability games. Can you share one with us?
Oh my God. I was literally just texting Madison and Linda, who I know you guys have talked about on the pod too, yesterday. So I do this meditation, attunement meditation is what I call it, sitting in the power. And yesterday I was sitting in the power and I just became overwhelmed with this idea of, oh, you need to hone in on like your psychic clairs. Like how do you get messages from spirit and what do they feel like? What do they sound like? And I instantly feel like it was a download of this game to play at the shop, like when it's slow, where I take a tarot card and I shuffle and I lay it down face down. And I take a notebook paper and I have to write, is it reversed or is it upright? So I do an arrow. And then is it a major arcana or is it a minor arcana? And then when I write that down, and then I'm like, is it a earth, air, fire, water if it's minor arcana? So is it swords, wands, cups, or pentacles?
While it's upside down?
Yeah, while you can't see it. So I intuit all of it. And I will tell you this, I have not been wrong about reversals yet. I'm rarely wrong about the minor major arcana, but when it comes after that, every time I think it's a wand, it's a sword, and every time it's a sword, it's a wand. And I'm like, damn. So, it's just pretty like those types of fun games to play. I also love playing like, is the next person to walk in here going to be wearing shorts? Are they going to be, is their hair going to be up? Like things like that, just to like see where my intuition takes me. But that's what I've been doing recently, that kind of stuff. And it's pretty fun to me, I guess, but I could be also a nerd.
I love the idea of tailoring something like that to something like work.
Yeah.
That's something that anybody could do kind of anywhere, regardless of what their job is. Like take a task that you normally do and let your intuition tell you small facets of it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. Parking spots is another good way, is to intuit like where the best parking spot's going to be, like what row, that type of thing. Like if you're ever just going to go to like, I don't know, Target or something, that's a fun one.
Princess parking. We talked about that in one of our Claire's episodes.
Oh yeah.
If you were to give like advice, because of a lot of our questions that came in were people who want to start developing their psychic abilities or developing mediumship abilities, where would you have someone start? Like what advice would you give them? What would you encourage them to do to get started?
If you were going to take a class from me on psychic development or even mediumship development, I would have you start with working with your chakras. And here's the reason why. The energy centers in your body, the 7 main chakras, are going to help you to understand your clairs. They're going to help you to understand what, like your language to spirit. So I always tell people, spirit's going to speak to every single one of us in a different language that is specific to us. And so I would start with like developing a sort of meditation technique that will start with your chakras. So some people go from 7 to 1. Some people go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, imagining the colors, the feelings and everything like that. And the biggest thing is sorting out how spirit's going to speak to you. And so when you understand what the chakras are, you understand the colors, what they bring to the table, meaning like your heart chakra is going to be where your emotions lie, where that love lies. Your root chakra is going to be, where your security lies. It's going to be what keeps you grounded and makes you feel safe. Once you understand all that, and then you can apply a sort of meditation technique where you kind of go through them, you can sort out when you get to your root chakra, for instance, are you getting a feeling of grounding? Are you visualizing a color of red, maybe an apple or something red in your mind's eye? Are you hearing a tone in your mind's, like your mind's ear? So this is going to help you to sort out, okay, you're very clairvoyant or clairsentient. Do you just know that this is your root chakra? Because the claircognizance is a serious thing. It's one of the most confusing clairs in my opinion, but you're going to be able to sort out the way spirit's going to speak to you through your clairs by going through your chakras and seeing how they show up for you. Once you kind of go from there, if you have a spiritual practice, and, you do work with, like, let's say crystals, you can listen to what, when they say what crystal calls to you, well, how is that crystal calling to you? Are you getting a feeling? Are you hearing something? Are you seeing something? And then you can go from there. I feel like that is like I think that's the best part, is to start with understanding how spirit's going to speak to you.
Yeah, I love to do that in the spiritual and then bring it into the mundane too, because sometimes people are like, well, I have no idea how a crystal calls to me, but it's the same way you would pick an apple at the grocery store. Like, do you pick the apple because of the color, because of the way it feels in your hand, because you're just drawn to that apple and you just pick it? Like, a lot of times I think people overthink that aspect of it, but that skill set's already in you. It's just about like uncovering it and getting out of your own way.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. It's like the saying of you're a spiritual being having a human existence, which means that we were in spirit first. And so the clairs, in my opinion, are your original language. Like before
Mm.
you learn to speak and listen and see things physically, you were doing it spiritually, right? And so we're kind of like getting back to that sort of, I don't know, original way to speak, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The original, like going back to your roots.
Yeah, literally.
I love that you brought up claircognizance because I also feel like it is the most confusing clair. And this is a very specific question that we got that I think you'll have some cool insight on is how do you tell the difference between just your thoughts and psychic messages or claircognizance?
Absolutely. So that's one of the things that the game that we just talked about with the tarot is teaching me even more. And I already have this slight understanding when your ego speaking to you, when it's like your thoughts, your mind, it's going to not only is it going to be more of like a screaming, right? It's going to be more of like a, oh, you got to go. It's reverse. It's reverse. It's reverse, right? It's screaming at you, but it will also change. So when it's your thoughts, it's going to change. So I'm going to try to think, I'm going to try to do a theoretical like analogy here. If you're driving and there's a left turn and a right turn and you're like, well, which way should I go? And your ego is saying, turn left. If you don't turn left, you got to turn left, turn left. But then you say, well, what happens if I turn right? And then you all of a sudden hear, turn right, you better turn right, you better turn right. Okay, that's your ego because your ego is going to change with everything because it's trying to stay alive. It's trying to be the forefront of everything. Your intuition is going to be a little bit more subtle. It's going to be more like, yep, you need to turn right. And it's not going to change. It's going to consistently say, yep, turn right. You should just turn right. Oftentimes people say that their intuition or when they're receiving something psychically, they'll hear it in their own like calm voice versus that screaming scared voice. And that is something that I have really embraced heavily because that's how I sort out when I'm doing mediumship, if it's somebody else speaking to me or if it's me. When I'm doing the tarot game, the reversals and the uprights, is the card upright or is it reversed? I'll see the picture of the reversal or like the arrow going down in my mind's eye, and it will be just like a very calm picture. So I guess you can say I'm seeing it clairvoyantly, but I'm also using my clairsentience, that kind of sacral area of my body, to be like, hey, is this right? And if I feel calm about it and I feel like, yeah, then I know, okay, that's right. That's the one I need to go to. And I've always gotten it correct. So I'm very proud of that.
I love that you brought up this idea of like turn left, turn right, because that's the game that I play with my intuition. Is I have a route when I get off the highway to get to my house. I can either go straight or I can go left. And it's the exact same time to get from my house for both directions. So I decide when I get there based on which nudge I get. So I just tune in and I'm like, go straight. And sometimes it's go straight because if you go left, you're going to crash into a car and die. And I'm like, okay, so that's not my intuition. that's my OCD talking. But it's helped me get really, really clear on like, just go straight, go left. Like, and I have avoided school zones. I've avoided traffic. I've avoided construction. I once avoided a major house fire that was on one of the paths that blocked the entire road. So fun game to play.
That's wild. I used to do that when I would leave Orange Theory because I would have to take Highway 19. And for anybody who's listening who lives in like the Tampa Bay area, you guys know that Highway 19 is like Satan's highway for traffic. And I would be like, do I need to go this way? Should I go down Highway 19 or should I go the back way? Which would normally take longer, but there's not as much traffic. And I would just get like a nudge. It would be like a nudge, like, no, you should definitely take McMullen or whatever the other road is called. And I would do it. And sure enough, there would be an accident on Highway 19 that would have it backed up or even stopped and rerouted. So it's a really good, that's such a good psychic game as well. Is which way should I go?
Yeah. I'll do it at restaurants too. If I'm like, when I leave the gym, I buy myself a little treat because I went to the gym and, it's always a little coffee. And I'm like, do I want Aroma Joe's or do I want Dunkin'? Because they're both on my way home. I let my intuition decide.
Let your intuition tell you which line is going to be shorter.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, another thing that came up a lot for our listeners was, can anyone be a medium or do you have to be born with it? And I think this can kind of extend to any psychic ability. We get this question a lot of like, are my clairs set in stone? Am I born with a certain set of gifts and I just have to live with that? Or can I change and develop? And so, can anyone be a medium?
Ah, yes, I love this question so much because I do feel that there are a lot of egotistical mediums, healers, all this that say, well, no, you have to be born with it. I think that's bull crap. Do you guys swear on this podcast?
Yeah, you can swear.
Are you kidding
Fuck
me?
yeah.
Fuck yes, that's bullshit. Damn it. I felt like a 5-year-old that just got to swear for the first time. Like, Mom, can I swear? I do think it's bullshit.
Did you ever ask your parents if you could swear in a song? Sorry. But then when you get permission to like say, I remember, oh my God, you know Avril Lavigne's "It's a Damn Cold Night." That damn 10-year-old me had never put so much effort into another word as I did in "It's a Damn Cold Night."
I love that. You know what my song was? And Molly, can I ask your age?
I'm 32.
Okay, so we're virtually the same age. I'm just a couple years older. Whatever. So I'm 35, and the song for me when I was a kid that I was like, Mom, can I please sing this song? And my mom was like, she was a trooper back then. She said yes, and I am in the car. I'm just gonna break into saying, I'm a bitch, I'm a lover, I'm a child. Like that song, I never hit bitch so hard. Okay, be careful how that editing goes. I've never hit the word bitch so hard. Okay. Sorry, but
I've got my blackmail on Anthony.
We are never clipping that.
I'm like, oh crap, someone's gonna cut that out and be like, he's hitting bitches. No, I'm not, I promise.
Mine was 2002, Aaron Carter's My First Ride. He says hell raising. And I was like, yeah, HE double hockey sticks. And then when I got into like pop punk music, I listened to this band called Gatsby's American Dream, which is still one of my favorites. They have a song called The Guilt Engine, and they very quietly say, I'm done fucking around with the guilt engine. And I remember calling my friend and putting it on the boombox, and she listened to Korn. And I was like, listen, I have a CD with the F-bomb on it. And she's like, they don't even scream it.
Korn, that's hardcore.
Like, oh.
Jesus, that's so funny. I love it.
That's so funny.
So anyways, can anyone be a medium?
Yeah. back to it. But I love a tangent. So you definitely will have to rope me in if we start doing more. So yeah, no, okay. Let's harken back to what we talked about earlier when I was like, yeah, your first language is your clairs, your spirit language, right? Because we are spiritual beings having a physical journey, right? And so I do think that because of that like thought process that everybody has it in them. And honestly, even the most mundane people, mothers especially, I feel like this happens a lot with women because of that maternal instinct. Moms will intuitively know when their child is upset or something's wrong, right? And it could be the most mundane mother out there. She's still going to have that intuition, right? Even I do feel like men tend to veer away from the spiritual instincts and spiritual intuition, but they still have it too. I do think, now this is where we kind of flip it, I do think some people are just a little bit more inherently attached or those abilities are more available to them. And I don't know, like, here's the thing is you can say Joe Schmo in his pre-life existence when he was planning what he wanted to do down here had nothing to do with spirituality, and he needed to be a super mundane person. He needed to have to work and do these things for this lifetime. And so he's probably not going to have as much access to those abilities as like Molly, me, and Madison, who apparently we chose to be, service to spirit here in this lifetime. And so I do think if you are interested in mediumship or psychic abilities or, any sort of spiritual healing, anything like that, then this is something that is open to you and you're supposed to do it. If you're interested in it, you absolutely can do it and you should try it. You should definitely just see what works for you.
Yeah. It reminds me of, we always talk about on the pod, skepticism. There's kind of two paths. There's that curious skeptic who's like, I don't really know, but I'm willing to try. And there's the judgmental skeptic that's like, this is bullshit and you can't convince me otherwise. Mm-hmm. It sounds like that's like sort of can be predetermined in a sense. Like if you're going to be a judgmental skeptic, you probably won't be able to tap into your psychic abilities. But if you're even asking the question of like, can anyone do this? Can I do this? Then the answer is yeah, just stay curious.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like, I feel like there's an aspect of being a child consistently, no matter how old you are. And you almost just play make believe until you realize, oh wait, I'm not really playing make believe anymore. And the skeptic, that I call them cynics, like the cynical person who's going to be like, that's not real, you'll never make me believe it. I believe that we all, and this is my personal opinion, and so if you don't agree with me, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, but you don't have to. The idea of having a journey, like a kind of like we're here to do certain specific things. I do personally feel that part of my journey here in this lifetime is to be a medium and to help people connect to their loved ones and be a psychic and to help all these things and to teach. I love teaching. But Joe Schmo cynic guy, his path might not be that. His path might be to overcome his cynical behavior. And so if he's being introduced to this and he's, or if you're practicing mediumship or Reiki and they're like, well, it's not going to work on me, blah, blah, blah. Well, you're giving him a chance to, but yeah, they might just, I don't know, this is getting a little deep, so I apologize, but I do feel like everybody has like a path, and some of us are just really geared towards the spiritual work. And I think everybody can do it if they want to. So
I love that.
Yeah.
It's part of, I think, like the introduction to the book Psychic Witch that really made me think about this idea of natural ability versus like learned and trained ability. And I think it's so interesting, like the value that we place on natural ability in like any field. I think Psychic Witch uses the example of athletes, like people who are naturally born with more athletic ability, and how that doesn't mean that no one, like, you don't have to be born athletic to run a marathon or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I do just think that there is, I don't want to say more value because like nothing is more or less important than anything else, I don't really think, but I think we should give a lot more credit to the people who aren't maybe as naturally inclined to any skill and push through and learn and develop through like the real hard work that it takes to develop any skill.
Oh, yes.
And I think that's especially true for psychic ability, because not only if it's not something that like comes easily to you from birth, it's also something that if it's not happening to you, how do you, like, you're also a curious skeptic. And so it's like, is this even real? Am I pushing towards something that's even real?
I have this thought process that, and I feel that it was inherently available to me. I've been seeing spirits since I was 12. And then when I decided to start working with it and doing and reading and everything like that, you would think that it would have been super easy for me. I think that people who inherently are just like can easily access like the spirit world or energy healing or psychic abilities, I think that it's harder for us to work it because we think I have this ego aspect about me. It's like, I don't need to do all these extra things, blah, blah. And spirit was like, oh no, bitch. Oh yes, you do. And I think that because there was that whole childhood experience that I had, that I thought it was going to be super easy, and it absolutely was not. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had a reading where I'm like, I'm sorry that I can't read for you right now. It's not coming through properly. And I would have to just like send them away. Like, say, I didn't send them away. I wouldn't make them pay. I would reschedule with them. We would redo things. And once I kind of like got out of my ego and realized, no, you do have to work for it, that it came back and it was a lot stronger. I think that people who are, like you said, the curious skeptics, I feel they tend to find it. And they tend to, because of the work that they do to find it, it's very interesting to me to see how, Molly, you're an insane example of this, of being a skeptic and then falling into this and doing the work and realizing all these things and the success that you've had and how great it is for you. It's such a cool thing to see, because I know people who have been doing Reiki their entire lives who can't seem to get out of their like small little circle of thought process because they're so. It's just something that they're so used to. So they're afraid to change. They're afraid to go outside. So I think that being the curious skeptic can sometimes even be more beneficial than being the, inherent psychic or whatever, if that makes sense.
Wait, I have the perfect analogy incoming.
Oh, I have one too.
Oh my
have
God.
one too. You go first.
All right. You're seeing this happen in real time, Anthony.
Analogy off.
Okay. So I love the athlete like perspective because it reminded me so much of when I used to run half marathons. Shocker, I used to be a runner for a period of time in my life. it did not come naturally to me. I literally, I don't think I had exercised in like 10 years. And then 6 months later, I ran a half marathon. And I had to work at it. It was like I had to stretch every day and I had to, drink water. I had to think about like, okay, the night before I have to carb load and I had to figure out what foods I could eat on the longer runs. And I had to, some days I was doing longer runs, but some days it was just like, getting up and moving my body to move that lactic acid through. So it was like an everyday process. It just, some days were more elaborate than others. And it allowed me to cross that finish line. But then I got cocky. And a couple years later, I was like, well, I've run a half marathon before. I can run one now. And I didn't train as well. And I really struggled. It didn't matter that I had done it before. It didn't matter that, I had all the right shoes, I had all the right clothes, I had the right breakfast. It's like I hadn't put in that work every single day or every single week to train my body and to train my muscles. And I think psychic mediumship and abilities is the same way, right? Like you could do, like we always say, 2 minutes a day is more effective than 60 minutes once a month. If you're doing a little bit of working with your intuition and strengthening that every single day, you're going to be able to cross that finish line versus the people who have that natural ability, they never hone it, and then they just pull it out of their back pocket once a year. It's like a party trick or whatever, and hope that it hits.
That is such a good analogy. Love it.
Your turn, Madison.
Okay, it made me think about like being in school, and if any like grown-up gifted kids.
Oh yeah,
I think you'll know what I'm talking about. Where when like in elementary school, if school comes really easy to you, you never learn to study.
Yes.
And I had this experience where I have always been a pretty decent test taker. I also think this is like an intuition thing of I was always as a child able to figure out what someone wanted me to say when I read a question. And so I just decided like school is easy for me. I'm a person who's really good at school. I'm so smart. So I don't need to study. And then as I got older, it was probably like 7th or 8th grade where I hit one math problem that I couldn't do immediately without listening. Like to the point where like if I had to pay attention to the lecture, I felt like I was stupid. Where I was like, oh, this isn't just like naturally coming to me. And I don't have the tools to learn because I never taught myself or I never learned how to study at all. And so I don't know how to study anything. And so it hits you like a freight train the second you experience any resistance.
I absolutely, that is, I can relate to both of your guys' analogies so hard. There is a thing that a lot of mediums, you'll hear in like mediumship. I think Madison, you and I've talked about it before, sitting in the power. And it's a little bit more like, I don't know if it's like a newer mediumship thing, like within the past like couple decades or whatnot, but it's essentially like you sit in the power, you extend your aura, you extend your power out, and you sit in this vibration, this power, right? Because that's really what you do when you go into mediumships, you go into quote unquote the power. And so the sit in the power attunement meditation that I was talking about is essentially a chance for me to extend myself and to be in this power and try to sit in this power for as much time as possible so that when it comes time to a reading, I'm not just there for 10 minutes and then I have to step out because I can't hold on to it, if that makes sense. And so there was a long time there where I kept hearing, it was like Spirit was saying, Anthony, you need to start learning this. You need to start trying to do this. You need to start working on this. And because like and Spirit also said that to me by other mediums talking about it, by reading the books that I was reading, talking about you need to sit in the power, you need to do something to where you're working with Spirit every single day, just a little bit, so that you can really understand it, like what it takes to do it and to be reading for people. And I would just be like, no, I don't need to do that. I don't do this. I'm not sitting in the power, blah, 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 blah. And I eventually got to this point, even at Hedge Witch, where like I said, I was giving readings where I could get little bits of information, but I would like get exhausted. And then I wouldn't be able to, by the time the last person would come in, I wouldn't be able to charge them for their reading because I did not feel my integrity won out. And I was just like, I can't charge you for this because I'm not, and then I started implementing the sitting in the power, and I was realizing that, oh my God, this is why you have to work at this. Like you can't just show up and do it and expect it to be perfect every time, which it will never be perfect every time, but you have to put in the work. And nothing tells the world of spirit that you are ready to serve and you are ready to work than doing the work yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like the more I sat every single day, even if it was just like you said, for 2, 5, 10 minutes or 30 minutes to an hour, it didn't matter. As long as I was doing it, my reading started paying off. It started happening, and I was able to hold on to it. I was able to bring forth more specific information. And yeah, so I definitely agree. You have to learn to study. You have to learn to continuously eat the food you need to eat so you can run, It's very, very much so that. I love that. I like this analogy.
Yeah. Krista Mitchell, who we've had on the pod before, and is one of my teachers, who really helped me open up my psychic abilities. She always says that prep makes the pro, and the difference between an okay reading and a mind-blowing reading is the practitioner's prep and what they do before they even start the session. What is your prep look like? How do you prepare?
So when I go into, I'm very ritualistic. I'm a life path 4, so I have a lot of like structured ritualistic things that I like to do. So I always do a ritual smoke cleansing, banishing. I do a banishing pentagram, which for those of you who don't know what that is, I start with the lower left-hand corner of the pentagram, and I go up in a counterclockwise motion. And I do 3 counterclockwise circles. And I just do that with the intent of banishing any sort of harmful energies, anything that would, interrupt my reading or keep me from connecting. And I go around the whole space that I'm reading, and I do that. And I think this is more of a mental thing for me. I mean, I do feel that smoke cleansing an area is going to help kind of raise the vibration and help kind of let those good vibrations come in. After I finish that, I sit and I go through my chakras. And there's 2 reasons why I do this. I feel like it helps me open up. It also helps me to know myself and helps me to understand, like when I'm in my root chakra, how am I feeling physically? How am I feeling mentally? Does my lower back hurt right now? These types of things you really want to know, because if you're in a reading and your lower back's hurting, it's not a message from spirit, it's your lower back's hurting, right? And so I go through each chakra and I just check in with myself. I open up, I spin those little motherfuckers around, and expand. And then I just always ask spirit. I say, I have like a little saying where I say guardians, guides, angels, and ancestors, who are able, willing, and available to surround me in the purest white light, connecting me to my higher self, my psychic and mediumship abilities. And then I ask one big thing that I feel like is very important for me to say in this little opening, like kind of prayer or whatever you want to call it, is help me to stay out of my own way and keep my ego at bay. I love to rhyme, as Madison knows, because to me, it gives my guides and my spirit posse the heads up to like help me sort it out a little bit more, help me to go a little bit deeper and to stay out of my own way, because that is the biggest thing that I personally have trouble with, is my ego wants to come in and tell a story when it's really not the story. And so after I feel good about this and I stay grounded, every time I go into a reading, I just kind of go through my chakras real quick again. And I say, help me connect to this person. Let me be of service, and let me be psychic. Let me be a medium. And then I go. And that's what I do personally during a reading, before a reading, I guess.
This is why you're one of my favorite people to learn from and be psychic around. I don't know the better way to say that, but I'm grateful that you're in my orbit for this reason, because you have such a strong foundational practice that really does like leach into everything that you do. And even that you will say out loud that when, like, you have to know when to call it, and that you have to be cognizant of your ego, is something that I think is so important for people who want to develop psychic abilities to hear. Mm-hmm. Even just from the angle of that, like, somebody who has been doing this for years has to do that.
Absolutely. I think that when you accept the fact that you're human doing spiritual work and can accept the fact that your ego steps in, like I said, you have to be okay with getting no's. It makes everything flow. You go into that, what you guys said, you're in the flow right now. You do go into the flow. And I think that that's a really hard thing for me. I'll be honest with you. My ego is very strong. Like I said, I'm a Leo moon. I love to be validated. I love to be perfect. I love to be right. And not like I need to be right, like more like I need to be right because I need the performance to be right. Right. Mm-hmm. And once you can get that ego out of the way and realize that it's not a performance, like you're actually there to help people, things just tend to flow. Service first is really the way there. So yeah.
I just love you, and I'm so grateful.
I love you. I feel like Anthony and I are besties, and you don't know it, even though we have met now in person. I was just like, after I left Spellcrafter, I was telling Madison, I was like, Anthony's so cool. I'm jealous you get to hang out with Anthony all the time.
Get out of the way, Madison. We're friends now. Molly and I are friends.
Oh, no.
The court of Anthony and Molly is starting.
Podcast.
You guys are both.
I'm taking Ruby with me, and I'm getting out.
Oh, you can go. She would actually probably be so excited about that.
Just don't bring her to my house.
Yeah, I fear your dogs would swallow her in one bite.
Oh, probably.
They would just be able to unlock their jaw, and she'd just crawl right in.
Yeah, I think Kirk's mouth is bigger than the whole dog.
Oh, probably. Ruby is so submissive too. She would just be like, "Okay, I'm sorry." Like, she's just like,
oh.
All right. And then we're going to end on a kind of fun, silly one. What's your current favorite tarot deck, and how did you pick it?
Oh, it's not even by me. I wish I could pull it out for you. So there is an artist called Matt Hughes who created the original deck was the Ethereal Visions tarot deck. The tarot deck is like Art Nouveau, and it's got like gold foil on it. It's beautiful. We sell it at Spellcrafter, shopspellcrafter.com.
It's in my purse right now.
Yeah, it literally is, because he just got it. But he came out with that one, and then he did launch a lunar version of it. So Ethereal Visions Lunar Edition, and so it's got some of the same pictures, except for in this edition, it's more prismic. So instead of gold foil, it's more like a prismic silver. And I love it because it's super inclusive. He's got people of color. He's got LGBT people. Like, it's just really, really cool. And like indigenous, like it's just, he kind of like took our entire world and put it into a deck. And he even has 2 extra cards in the deck that aren't in normal decks, which I actually love that. It does kind of throw us for a little spin in some of my readings. It's really fun to pull one of those cards out. But that is my favorite deck right now. And if you ever get a reading with me, you're gonna see that deck most likely, and you're gonna see Lenormand also too. I guess we didn't talk about Lenormand, did we? Or you didn't ask me about Lenormand, but Lenormand's also great. I love my Lenormand deck. Sorry,
I didn't know what that was, and I was like, is that like Caleb, the little ghost? Lenormand, just a little sprite on your shoulder that comes up in meetings.
Stop opening the door, Lenormand.
And you'll see my little ghost friend that comes with me to every.
I was
meeting.
like, okay,
His name is Lenormand.
I'm ready.
I have a third seat at the table.
Don't sit there.
It's for Lenormand.
No, Lenormand's another deck. I'm sorry. I was just thinking about if you ever get a reading from me, you'll see this tarot deck. You also see my Lenormand deck, which is a really fun deck to play with. So anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Lenormand is a type of card that Anthony actually taught me about that I have started to use more and more since I met you. That like, so tarot has the same, I always say it tarot when we're together, and then I say tarot when we're not together. I just flow in and out. But tarot has the same 78 cards. Oracle is kind of a catch-all term for like any deck that the creator chooses their own. Lenormand has its own set of these. I don't know how many there are. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's the same theme of cards every time. So like there's the man is one of them, and that like you'll find the man in every Lenormand deck. It's kind of the same.
They're very omen-y. Like they're all omen, like more like you'll get the man, and then if you pull the man out, and and then you pull the snake out with it, because you really don't pull one card with Lenormand. You have to pull at least 2. Then it's the snake is gonna tell the story of the man. Where okay, this guy's a toxic man. There's a toxic man in your life, or something like that. I use Lenormand as a sort of like, okay, so shuffling is something that keeps me grounded when I'm doing mediumship. And so I will constantly shuffle, but not with an intent to pull cards, just more of an intent of staying grounded and centered. And, but there's occasionally times where I'll be shuffling and something will pop out, and I'm like, oh, they want to talk about this, type of thing. So that's where I bring the Lenormand out. Sorry, that was quite the weird tangent, but I just felt the need to say it about Lenormand.
I actually am so glad that you brought this up, because I am someone that I don't resonate with the Rider-Waite tarot. I really struggle with it. But as you're talking about like the Lenormand, I'm like, I feel like I would resonate more with that. And it makes me feel like I don't suck at reading tarot. I just haven't found the right tool yet.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, Molly, I know a place where you can get a Lenormand deck.
Maybe we'll drop a link to it in the show notes.
And we do this place does carry the exact deck that I resonate with so hard. And maybe that will be, since, you know, besties, that will be your favorite deck too.
I'm going to need a link. Anthony, speaking of links, tell everyone where they can find you, where they can learn more about you, where they can book you.
Absolutely. So everything is just Anthony, Anthony, and then Lightz, Light, but with a Z, because my actual last name is pronounced Lightz with a Z. So just anthonylightz.com, or my Instagram is at Anthony Lightz, psychic medium, but you just have to put Anthony Lightz. Don't go to what's it called? TikTok. Because my TikTok is so boring. It's just the only reason why I post on TikTok is so that I can get what are those at the bottom? The captions at the bottom. It's so much easier on TikTok.
Use CapCut.
I have CapCut, but you can put captions on CapCut?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they auto caption.
Yeah.
And then you can batch edit them. It's easier than TikTok.
Oh.
See, you're learning mediumship here, you're learning tarot, and now you're learning video editing. This is a well-rounded podcast.
Yes, it's extremely well-rounded.
A one-stop shop for all your needs.
That's amazing. Okay, well, we might have to have another Zoom meeting eventually about CapCut, because that would be an amazing thing to learn.
I'm gonna see you in a couple weeks, Anthony.
Hey.
Don't think I won't bring this back around.
And don't think I will not whip my iPad out immediately and start editing videos with you.
Perfect. It's a plan.
Thank you.
All right. I'll get you guys a room by yourself so you
sorry,
can
Madison.
bestie out.
Madison.
But thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Anthony. It's so important to us to have people that we know and trust to give this kind of information. And so thank you for being that person in my life, and also for our listeners. I love you.
Love you.
I love you guys. You guys provide such a nice little thing here, and I'm very excited about it. Not a little thing, a great thing, a big thing now. And I just want to let you guys know that listening to you is such a pleasure, and I'm being here with you is even more of an honor. So I really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Aww.
Hey, until next time.
Until next time.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Demystify Magic with Molly and Madison. If you want to learn more about us, you can find all our links in the show notes.
We'd love to know what you think of today's episode, so drop us a review or give us a shout out on social media. And don't forget to let us know your magical moment of the week. Okay, love you. Bye.